I just want to charge you to have an opener tonight. We give you information, process it, and run with those information because those information will change your life. And I'm not saying this because I want to say that. And also, tonight is not a church program. This is purely a business program. It's not a KICC event. It's not a KICC program. This is a business opportunity event. That's why we call it a roundtable conversation. And you have the privilege to ask as many questions. There's no silly questions. Whatever question you have in your heart, please put it on the chat box. And we're going to take every question tonight. So, but the earlier you can put your question through, the better for us, because we want to keep this, we want to wrap up everything within 2 hours. Okay? Also, when you're asking your question, use the reaction button. Raise up your hand, use it so that we don't want it to be crowded. And please remain muted except we ask you to unmute so that we can have a good conversation tonight. You know, some of you have encountered with me, you've engaged with me, and you've also engaged with our host tonight. But for those who are joining us for the very first time or trying to, that doesn't know me, I migrated to the UK 25 years ago. And it's been a wonderful experience. And tonight, I'm privileged to be introducing my spiritual father, my mentor, that I've been under his tutelage for the last 2 decades, 2 decades plus. I've been under him, and I can tell you whatever you hear tonight can change your life. This man has been instrumental to many people of color globally to change their mindsets. Many people of color have been able to start new things, start new businesses, invest in real estate, and the testimonies are just there. So I don't want to spend so much time to introduce our host. You know him already. That's why you are here tonight. And I know that you are hungry, you want to hear what he's going to say. So without much ado, I'm going to bring on live with us that is in the house. Let's give it to him, Pastor Matthew Ashimoloho.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brother Mayo. Such a great joy. I'm privileged to be here tonight. And I'm ready to speak. I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to share. I don't know if you want me to go ahead or you have a question for me, Mr. Mayo, before I start.
I want you I know you've spent weeks to prepare for today.
All right.
So I want you to give us what you've been preparing that we are salivating already. So give it to us. And I'll start. After your presentation, I'll ask questions. I've got lots of questions. And also keep bringing your questions on. The earlier, the better for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much, and welcome. A big welcome to everyone on the platform across the world. Some of you, it's afternoon in Canada and the United States. Some other people, probably it's much earlier. And for those in Africa, it's much later than even for us here in the United Kingdom. Tonight, talking about the chance to invest in Africa with a very special and very strong emphasis on Nigeria and Lagos in particular. Let me just summarize what I'm going to say with a couple of statements, and after that statement, I shall expound. First is to let you know that Lagos economic growth and stability is a reason for investment. Secondly, the population growth and urbanization of Lagos is a very major reason for investment. Lagos has been predicted by the United Nations to grow in the next 24 years to become the largest city on earth. The largest city on earth. In other words, it is now somewhere between 24 and 27 million, with close to 10,000 people coming into Lagos daily. In fact, it should grow to like 80 million by 2050. But I think, I suppose, give and take, people passing on, people moving on, they say it will be minimum 40 million people by 2050, which is just 24 years' time. And if you know anything about real estate, 24 years sounds long, but you will be amazed what happens in 24 years. Tonight, also, I'll be sharing with you investing in real estate in Lagos, how it brings you high yield, either in the value, rental yields, or even the value of your property. The fourth thing we'll be sharing tonight is how Lagos is a strategic location, and particularly if you are buying a land, a place which already has infrastructure in place, how it lifts the value of what you're buying. The next truth we'll be sharing today is that the country is beginning to wake up to the necessity for putting in place good government policies. And matter of fact, it will interest you to know that 2025 real estate overtook the oil industry in Nigeria. It will also interest you to know that this week, somewhere between Monday and Friday, the World Bank, along with Elon Musk, actually rated the economy of Nigeria as the sixth growing right now. And it's very interesting. I fly in and out of Nigeria almost every week. I just left Nigeria yesterday. And it's very interesting that while you have people who are Nigerians who live in the diaspora who sometimes have trepidations about their own country, I have not been in any flight where in business class, upper class, first class, passenger level is no less than 30%, 40% foreign. Tonight we'll be looking at diversification opportunities, why you need to diversify. Tonight we'll be looking at the cultural and lifestyle appeal of Lagos. I'm sure you have heard of the Dirty December, even if it's not your thing, and even if you are in the age bracket like I am, and you just want to sit in your room drinking your tea, yet there is a mass migration into Lagos towards the end of the year that is almost unbelievable. Matter of fact, the state of Lagos itself began to plan for that of next December from January when they saw the magnitude and the inflow of money. Tonight also will be touching tourism and hospitality boom in a city like that with 27 million people and growing to 40 million. The chances of tourism and hospitality increases. There is a time in Lagos, somewhere between October and December, when it is almost hard to get a room in some Airbnbs and hotels. The seventh, or rather the eighth I'll be sharing tonight is Makarios' specialism in creating what appeals to you as a person in the diaspora. And of course, it appeals to those of you who live in Nigeria, but we have made our vision to be well-rounded. Then we're going to share with you steps you can take to be successful in your own real estate investment. To make it easy tonight, I will just say that I have technically over-prepared. I might not finish all the notes I have prepared, and at a point, I may actually just choose to jump. I have like 5 or 6 major sections, and I'm going to do PowerPoint so that whatever I'm sharing, you can screen grab it, you can quickly write it. I want you to be truly well informed. That's the way I am. I like to leave people with adequate information so that information helps your decision making. So the first thing we need to deal with is your mindset and my mindset in real estate. And that's where we're going to start, the foundational mindset and actions which you need to take Now I'm going to be as fast as possible, hoping that every statement made makes an impact on your mind. And if I raise any questions on your mind, please drop it in the box. Mr. Mayo and I will try to deal with them. So we go 200 points. We'll not finish all, but we'll try our best. Point number 1 and 2, think ownership, not just rent. There's so many people who live in rented apartments all of their lives because it's easy, but they do not realize they are increasing value for somebody else. You need to create legacy for yourself and for children and grandchildren. And for those of you who know the good book, the Bible, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance for children's children. Didn't even mention your children. It skipped one generation. Number 2 tonight, think legacy, not short-term profit. There are some things that quickly give you short-term profits. Real estate is one of those that become a legacy that can be in the family. And if you have never had the need to sell, you'll be amazed what it has become. I will share illustrations as they come to my head. In 1991, my family and I lived in a part of London where I formed the habit of going for a long walk early in the morning. And I walk into the city of London. We used to live in a part of London near Whitechapel called Shadwell. And I noticed that the people of my color will be coming out of these big buildings by 6 a.m., 7 a.m., having gone to clean. And people in black, men in black, will be going in to do banking. And it just hit me that something has to happen. We need to find a way to challenge the man of color to create wealth. For those who know me, from that time I began to teach in the city of London major wealth creation seminars, owning properties, how to buy a property, if they give you 25 years to pay the mortgage, how to pay it off in 10 years, 12 years. Suddenly, many people rose to become millionaires in the community. Matter of fact, I carried it, put it on our TV programs, on Christian channels, on cables. In fact, some cable stations, including one that was known as God TV, will put a disclaimer and say we're not responsible for Matthew's opinion, because I was going straight and really telling the people how to overcome their bankers who just wanted to keep creating wealth for them. In the process, a large number found that they were owning their property, because if it's on mortgage, somebody else owns it. Not only did we teach that, we now taught them how to use the same building and use the equity to buy the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, and the rest is history. So let's move into the rest of our notes tonight. Invest before infrastructure arrives, number 5. Or rather, let me go number 3 and 4. Think location first, design second. In other words, you should think of the location where the real estate will be, and that helps because you see, many people in the diaspora, we're all guilty of this. We go and build in our village, not thinking of the fact that it may not increase in value. Number 4, treat land as currency, not expense. When you buy real estate, it increases in value to the point that in 5 years, 10 years, you are even wondering, how did this happen? I can think of people who bought into Makarios when we launched. So those who bought 300 square meters for only 33 million naira 3 years ago, 2022, 2023, 300 square meters in the first part of our estate, and the first of our 2 estates, is now 97. What did they do? They put down 33 million. They didn't even cut the grass. The land increased in value. The person who bought 500 square meters for 55, 57, it is now kicking the 150 million level. What did they do? They didn't cut the grass, they didn't do anything. Can you get that in the Western Hemisphere? No. I've lived in London for 42 years, came into London February 11, a day like this in February of 1984, in a few days' time, I'll be 42 years in the UK, or rather, maybe, yeah, 42 years in the UK. But you could never get that kind. Number four, treat land as currency, therefore. It is money increasing itself with you almost doing nothing. Five and six reason for real estate: invest before infrastructure comes. In other words, many will say, how many facilities are in the area? Do they have restaurants? Do they have parks? Once that comes in, you have not taken advantage and grow with the area. While I tell you of 42 years ago in the United Kingdom, I can also tell you stories of 53 years ago in the city of Lagos, as I came in to visit my brother to resume in seminary on the outskirts of Lagos, Ikorodu. At that time, for those of you who are from Nigeria, there are places I will mention, and you'll be shocked if I told you they were all forests. Mile 12 was a thick forest. K2 was a thick forest. Half of Maryland was a thick forest. Ikeja was half forest and a few houses. At that time, Allen Avenue in Lagos, Nigeria was being sold for 1,000 naira for a plot. Okpebi Road was sold. Okpebi was sold for 500 naira. Yeah, you heard me, 500. Well, there was the Catholic Church on Tony Street in the same Ikeja. It was the only thing on Tony Street. As a young pastor in Lagos, I used to wonder, these Catholics, what's wrong with them? Why do they buy and build in forest? I didn't know they saw what I did not know. They understood real estate. Number six, buy where the population is migrating to. Suddenly, the city of Lagos exploded. I mean, I could just take you through the whole city, but because of time, I cannot even forget as a young pastor, our church denomination bought a land in a place called Idimo. It was a very thick forest. We would fill a big Molue bus to go there and help cut grass. I also remember that I was the young man who helped to hold the stick for the surveyor, Jones Anthony, who measured the 20 acres for the 4 square church. I just went with him out of fun because we are friends. Just 2 years ago or last year, 2 years ago, I went to speak there. There's it was impossible to get that thick, dense city now. That's what happened. Number seven, hedge inflation with physical assets. Inflation will not stop on earth. It will keep increasing. The only way to handle inflation is for you to have an asset. Number eight, invest in cities, not villages. One of the reasons not to invest in villages is because value hardly rises. And even if you need to fix something you're building in a village, the amount that will fix it will almost be like building another one. When I was a young man, a bachelor, at the age of 27, I bought land and built my first house. But guess what? No one was teaching what we're doing tonight. I built it in a small town called Modakeke, next to Ile-Ife in Nigeria. The first money I ever had at the age of 27, still a bachelor. I was invited to buy in Lagos, but I had all kinds of funny ideas in my head. Ladies and gentlemen, at some point I had to practically abandon that house because just the cost of roofing would buy me some plots in Lagos. Would have even bought me an acre in Mowe, which I later bought a large sum of land in Mowe. Number 9 and 10, think in decades, not in months. Oh, my word. If I could tell you the impact of this. You just heard me mention a village called Mowe. I went into that village and bought acres of land. You see, my story is very long. I began to bring in musical instruments into Nigeria as a young pastor. From the musical instruments, I made some money. Wanted to go study in Canada, but then I was sent to England by the denomination. A pastor friend, Tunde Joe, that dropped in my spirit, why don't you bring Christian books into the nation? Money couldn't leave Nigeria at that time. It was Abacha, Babangida time. So with all my money, I brought in Christian books, became the representative of 40 publishers. We were the only one distributing books in the whole nation. Everyone bought from us. So I had money, couldn't take it out. That was how I went and began to buy land. Unknown to me, and there were not many people teaching then, unknown to me that I was taking a path, I guess it must be the leading of God, that led into buying land, buying up villages that were close to Lagos, not knowing that population will get there. Number 10, buy scarcity, avoid excess supply. So today, when you hear of a city like Lagos exploding in growth, it is wiser to buy the place where you think that land is going to be scarce here tomorrow. Things are going to be scarce here tomorrow. For example, the city of Lagos is growing in the Ibejuleki direction, and very soon there will be no land available. All will have been allotted. So you buy scarcity now, and not just buy something that looks excessive and cheap, because you may pay the consequence later. Number 11, invest emotionally and analytically. In other words, sometimes when you want to invest, we become too analytic that we don't bring in our emotion. Or sometimes we bring in too much of our emotion and we are not analytic. You need to combine both so that it is sensible a decision, and it is also that which sits well with your emotion. You cannot be over careful and you miss opportunities. You cannot be careless and you buy trouble. Number 12, think global standards, but African opportunity. In other words, a place like Makarios. Tonight, we're going to be presenting to some of you who have not heard of it, two estates. One of them have apartments which you can rent out as Airbnb or short lets. We are building with global standards in mind, but we are presenting African opportunities. And when we say global standards, as you know, most materials that you find in a house are bought from around the world. There is no market separate for Africa. All of us go to the same market. But the African opportunity is that the same house, for example, a 2-bedroom apartment, which we're going to present to you tonight, at somewhere around £40,000, is in the city of London, £300,000. That is global standard, African opportunity. Number 13 and 14, choose developers, not just land. There are times, particularly people in the diaspora, somebody had approached them and said, someone is selling land. They didn't think of, are they developers? Do they have a name? Is their reputation on the line? That's part of what you consider. Because somebody told you, I know a one Baba who is selling, you might be buying trouble. Number 14, invest where the government is spending. As I speak to you today, I told you I just came back from Africa yesterday. Day before yesterday, I went to Makarios. We have 2 Makarioses. Makarios Luxury Place, Makarios Champions Place, because we are getting it ready to lay foundation for the Villaggio, the apartments. I went every day during this week. As we were leaving on Thursday for me to fly Friday morning, we went on the new road, the coastal road. So the first one, the Lekki Ekpe Expressway, is a new infrastructure put in by government, costing so much. Actually, the roads have been made with concrete. You know, Africa, our logistics is still, we use trailers to carry everything. When I was a little kid, trailers were not the things that carried petrol around Nigeria. It was the train. So now The Lekki Expressway is ready, but then the coastal road. Oh my God, that is the road which, if you want to go to the east, if you want to go southeast, if you want to go anywhere from Lagos to Ogun State to Ondo State, close to Ekiti State to Edo State to to Bayelsa to Cross River to River State, this new road called the Coastal Road, once you hit it, you are driving by the sea. We drove from Makarios Champions Place back to my house. Back to my house. The government is spending, sometimes all we hear of is corruption in Africa. And sometimes you find that sometimes there is a belittling of efforts being made to put infrastructure in place. And we who are owners of the land tend to not be the first to move. Many times it's foreigners who have moved. Number 15, 16, see land as leverage for capital. See land as leverage for capital. When you have money sitting in an account, sitting in a bank, you have not leveraged it. What is leverage? Leverage is anything you use to increase capacity or ability. The reason your jack can lift your car is because there is a lever inside the jack. Number 16, think appreciation and cash flow. So when you own land and when you own property like these apartments or the villas in Makarios, it is appreciating as the economy grows, as population grows, what you have increases in value. 17 and 18, I've got to zoom as fast as possible today. 17 and 18, position for future zoning upgrades. In other words, as the city grows, the nation is also zoning. So you keep hearing me talking of Lekki, Ekpe, Ibeju, Lekki. From Lekki to Ekpe is now called the Lagos New City. The city, the state itself have designated that corridor as the city of the future, putting infrastructure in place, creating systems in place, and they have started working on an international airport so that part of Lagos even has its own airport. The free trade zone is 20 minutes from Makarios. The airport I mentioned, 10, 15 minutes from Makarios. The Dangote refinery, about 20, 25 minutes from Makarios. In fact, when you are in Makarios, you are seeing the flaring of gas from afar off, even though it is very far. Number 18, buy assets that banks respect. The bank does not respect certificate, does not respect other things, but value assets. I personally have not tried it. I don't think the bank will ask you to come and take a loan or give you some kind of fund for a project you want to carry out because you have Bitcoins. I don't know. I'm not a Bitcoin person, but I'm a real estate person. 19 and 20, invest where the wealthy are moving. You see, real estate, land is land, earth is earth. But the people who live in a location cause value to come to it or value to move away. That's what Makarios is doing. That's the area. In fact, when Makarios Luxury Place moved in that direction, every estate that came up had to raise their standards because we came and said we're building a luxury estate, giving people a suburban experience. Number 20, choose prestige over convenience. At some point, particularly as a diasporian, you need to think of convenience and to think of prestige also, not just convenience alone, but prestige, value. And the level of value that Makarios brings, in my opinion, is probably bigger than some of the high name places that we know in Lagos. Victoria Land is a great name. Ikoyi is a great name. But the designers of Ikoyi and Victoria Island made a huge mistake. I can drive into any street if I get to Lagos today. They did not create a system of a firewall. In Makarios, Makarios estates have a firewall to create protection and to create a system of deciding who enters. So those who live in Makarios can sleep and be able to have peace inside their estate, creating serenity, security, and community. That's the vision of our first estate. Let me share with you the advantages of Lagos compared to many places you may be, particularly for those of us who live in the diaspora. If you invest in Lagos, you are joining the economic nerve center of Nigeria. 60% of all business done in Nigeria is done in Lagos alone. You heard me. Yes, a nation of 245 million people, several cities, 400 languages spoken in Nigeria, 400, about almost 500 languages spoken in Nigeria. 60% of all business done in the nation is done in Lagos. 65% of VAT paid in the whole nation is paid in the city. See, how come? Because Africa's migration system is not like Europe. In the United Kingdom, for example, our driving license is handled in Wales. Health services is handled somewhere in the Midland. Somewhere else handles another thing. In Africa, everything is concentrated in Lagos. Number 22, follow Lagos GDP growth trends. And you will see that the level, the level of growth, if you own real estate there, and if you came in now, you took advantage. You will leverage 23, you will leverage 25 million population now and 40 million by 2050, which is 24 years' time. You'll be able to target high density employment corridor. 25, 26 says you'll be able to invest where urbanization cannot be stopped. It's just Lagos. I mean, I sometimes I have to go around the city. I'm just shocked when I see the crowd when I go to my Amukoko. It's like everybody lives here. Then you go towards Abule, but then you think everybody lives here. Then you go towards Ikeja, everybody lives here. Buy property before population pressure peaks. Although Lagos may have a challenge of peaking because everybody is drawn there. In fact, the whole nation lives there. And you need to take advantage, not to come in as those crawling from the bottom, but growing with the city. You need 27, 28 to use Lagos housing deficit as an opportunity. Lagos has a housing deficit. Nigeria has a housing deficit of currently 20 million, conservatively put, and it's likely to grow. Can you believe this? In 25 years' time, it's likely to grow to like 80 million because the rate of build is not catching up with the rate of need. And that's why Makarios, having built villas and built 4-bedroom terraces, we're now building 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartments, which has become a major desire of the upwardly mobile young people. So you exploit Lagos rental demand imbalance. There is imbalance. A lot of young professionals finishing their studies around the world or in the nation who want to work there, and particularly where Makarios Champions Place is, where we're building the terrace, the apartments. So many foreigners are now working in the free trade zone and have to drive 1.5 hours back to go look for somewhere to stay in Ikoyi. Those who come into this vision take advantage. 28, 29, 30, invest where migration never stops. I told you, it's ever increasing. 10,000 every day. Buy in Lagos and buy into the expansion zone. And when I tell you Makarios Champions Place, where we have the apartments, and by the way, the lands are also available. What the government is doing is giving allocation to estates that have the money to be able to get government allocation, so that up front the government realizes that it did not plan in the past. People had to plan the city of Lagos by themselves. So the government now have created a corridor of the future where people can plug in and they buy, and as people move in, value increases with what you have. I told you the story of Okwebi when it was 500 naira. I was a bachelor. I still remember my fiancée, who became my wife, following me to go speak in a church. And the man saw me there and said, "They're selling land here for 500 naira." I looked at him like, hey, my Christian conviction is that Jesus will come soon. When I was now ready, knowing that, yeah, he will come soon, but I need a house for my family, I bought a plot of land, 10 million. The same place that I should have bought 500 naira. I went back to buy 10 million. So land does not wait. You need to align 3132 with Lagos's long-term master plan. The city realizes that the United Nations prediction is real. You can't stop people from coming. So they are actually creating master plans that will make the city work. And then you need to invest near commercial clusters. I'm going to jump in my notes because I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you on section 3 briefly, which is Ibejuleki New Wealth Corridors and why you should take action. You see, this is the New Wealth Corridor. I'm not talking of just owning a piece of property in Africa, but it's a wealth corridor that will in return value to your money, 41, 42, buy inside the Lekki Ekwe growth axis, invest near Dangote refinery. It's a new thing that even people who are outside of Africa, who are not Africans, realize that this place presents the opportunity to do something to grow your money. What you who's watching today considers to not be much may just be your step in creating wealth for the future. Your 30,000 pounds can get you something like a one-bedroom short-let or Airbnb. And if you get regular rent for it, you'll be amazed how the same one-bedroom returned your money in 4 or 5 years, and your house is still standing. Let me go back to what I told you about Okwebi. So I buy the land for 10 million and built with 45 or thereabouts. So it became 55. 4 flats in front, a house at the back. We stayed in the house at the back every time we went to Africa. The 4 flats was rented by the Turkish college. In 7 years, they paid me for the land and the whole houses I built. And later, when I was going to sell everything, that was my profit. 44, position around the free trade zone benefits. The benefit of the crowd that will come there, the benefit of the business that will be done there, the benefit of the fact that people will be perpetually pulled to that corridor. And one of the beauty of that corridor is new things, new vision, new enterprise, new dream. Oh, and by the way, by the time we begin to talk to you about prices, you'll be shocked. 10 minutes from us is the one which the government itself initiated. There's an estate the government initiated and is selling for $250 per square meter, while Makarios is selling their own for just about $100 per square meter. Buy where logistics and industry converge and invest before full industrial activation. Let me just take you again by saying buy land, buy land and bank it. Because you see, when you bank the plots early, 47, 48, when you bank the plots early, you now have value. Some people, when we launched Makarios Logs Replace, they bought 2 plots, 3 plots. The man who stretched himself and bought 500 square meters for 55, 57 each, which ended in 110. In 2, 3 years, their land is now 300 million in value. And we're talking of a land that already has infrastructure. The road is there. The water is already being directed to each plot. As I speak to you, Makarios Logs Replace, we are installing electrical equipment that is of the latest. For some of you who came out of Nigeria, you know what our transformers look like. Once you go past a transformer, you already know it. No, Makarios transformer is actually a box. It's the latest. It's a box. And as I speak to you, they are installing so that before July, in fact, some people are already building their house. People in luxury place will start living. And in Makarios Champions Place, right now we're getting ready to lay the foundation for the apartments. Target future commercial conversion zones also inside Makarios Luxury Place and Makarios Champions Place. We have the commercial zones, schools, event place, hotel, where people can build and take advantage of the core in the future. Buy before the international airport's completion, 4950. The work have already started at the international airports. And if this current administration is unable to finish it, because this current governor will finish by May next year, whoever takes over will have to finish that airport because it's been signed, sealed, and now it needs to be delivered. Oh, and by the way, Makarios Champions Place and Makarios Luxury Place are facing the coming train. You see, what is a coming train? Lagos has about 3-4 lines. And I personally believe that the line that's coming from Marina to Ekpe that will pass in front of the 2 estates is going to be the busiest. In fact, Makarios Champions Place, where the Airbnb, where the apartments will be, takes advantage. Makarios Luxury Place is looking at the station opposite. Makarios Champions Place is going to have possibly a station just beside it. And we have entry points from 3 points, so we have an advantage. It cannot be a blocker to us. 51, 52 target areas attracting expatriates. Many times people who are from our country debate rents. Those who are going to live in the Makarios area because of proximity to the various trade zone and the business district coming up, they don't have the time to debate. They are ready to pay. Invest in infrastructure-ready estates. Like I told you, in Makarios, what we do is build an estate with infrastructure in place. Not only infrastructure, but things that will attract. Also, 53, 54, buy inside government-approved layouts. Avoid speculative, unapproved zones. Many people recently saw 176 estates that were published that didn't have those advantages. Because of time again, I want to show you the advantage of you investing. In section 4, I'm going to move into that. I talk of rental and cash flow actions. These are the reasons why you should invest. If it means that, look, you took equity from a house in Europe to buy this, it gives you 2-3 advantages. 1, you have a property somewhere. 2, you have a property that is bringing returns. 3, if it is an Airbnb, you can block weeks when you and your family went. It's a practical working estate. Invest where people must rent. Target professionals, not low-income tenants. number 62.
What about business?
Even the government is beginning to see that its previous idea of low-income housing may not work. 63, 64, invest in short-let friendly zones. I've just described the villaggio, the rental places to you. It's going to be such that people are secure and people can buy, they can hand it over to us to rent, to manage their Airbnb for them and their shortlets for them. Designed for Airbnb profitability. And then 65, 66, target corporate rental demands. I just told you, when I had the Turkish college renting those 4 apartments, I had no issue. The agent collected, they just paid direct all the time. Invest in estates that allow short lets. That's what we want to allow you to do, particularly in Makarios. 67, 68, buy properties with property management options. In other words, particularly for many of us who live in the diaspora, who don't have the time to go see, you can have the management of your properties by us for a fee. Maximize rental yield per square meter. So when you buy, you are maximizing the money you have put in. 69, 70, choose luxury over volume. I made that mistake many years ago. I did not choose luxury over volume. Some of you may have heard my story.